Roll call, please.
Smith.
Here.
Clute.
Here.
Bragg.
Here.
Robish.
Present.
Mayor Harrington.
Here. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public forum. Public comments may be sent during the live meeting broadcast on the city's YouTube channel. The link is listed on citywide website at www.hursd.com/citygovernment. In order to use the YouTube chat feature, please create an account with your YouTube and Gmail or use your existing accounts. Please state your name and address for the record. Public forum is limited to a maximum of 3 minutes per person. We also have our HR director, Nathan, sitting on the phone today. So if you want to call in with a question to us, call in on the phone. Nathan will get my attention and we'll answer your question at that time. So, and with that, is there anybody here who wants to speak in public forum tonight? Seeing none, I do have one. Doug, I believe you have a message for public forum.
Thanks, Mayor. The Solid Waste Department wanted me to make this announcement. This morning's yard waste collection and tomorrow, Tuesday, October 27th, yard waste collection will not take place due to the cold temperatures. Those routes will be collected on Wednesday, October 28th. The Thursday and Friday routes will be collected on their normal day. They also want everybody to know that the last week of yard waste collection will be November 2nd through the 6th. So plan accordingly.
Okay. Thank you, Doug. Agenda approval tonight. We have two changes in that. We have 3.1. We could consider taking 4.5 off consent agenda and adding to the 6.1 petitions and communications. 3.2, add 8.4 discussion on sidewalk for new building with James White. 3.3, add 8.5 purchase of COVID funds. I need a motion for the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda with the changes requested.
Commissioner Smith, second. Commissioner Robish. All those in favor, roll call, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Clute.
Aye.
Bragg.
Aye.
Robish.
Aye.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye. Consent agenda. Matters concerning appearing on the consent agenda are expected to be non-controversial and will be acted upon by the commission at one time without discussion unless a member of the commission requests an opportunity to address any given item. Items removed from the consent agenda will be discussed at the beginning of the formal items. Tonight's agenda, 4.1, minutes October 19, 2020. 4.2, fuel quotes by city departments. 4.3, raffle filed by Huron Volunteer Fire Department for December 19th at the North Fire Station. 4.4, special event on sale alcoholic beverages filed by Top Floor Events for Chamber Mixer on November 10th at Builders First Choice, 445 4th Street Northwest. 4.6, accept the resignation of Officer George Height. 4.7, payment of the bills. Entertain a motion.
Move to approve consent.
Commissioner Smith
Second.
moves approved, second by Commissioner Bragg. Roll call vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Clute.
Aye.
Bragg.
Aye.
Robish.
Aye.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye. We'll go to petitions and communications. 6.1, special event on sale alcoholic beverage license filed by the State Fair for a wedding reception on November 7th at the Women's Building on the fairgrounds. Commissioner Clute.
Well, this was originally on the consent agenda, and in view of two factors, I asked Gary to put it on regular agenda so that we could discuss it in a little more detail. And the one factor was just last week we had a work session where several bar owners did come to the commission and raise the issue of the state fair getting a number of special liquor licenses for, well, it looks like $55 a time to host events there at the Nordby Exhibit Hall. And they have paid tremendous amounts of money to get their liquor license, and then they have to renew it, and it's taking away business. So we listened to them, and we're going to be looking at that issue. I think we're having the city attorney look at that further. So that was one issue I wanted to have this on the agenda for, but more importantly in that, to me, was the fact that we're having a wedding apparently right in the middle of a real tough time for the coronavirus. And I wanted to question the state fair about this event a little more in detail, because it doesn't say anything about, I understand it's a wedding, it doesn't even say it's a wedding, but I do understand it is a wedding, and I'd like to know how many people are invited, for one thing. I wanted to make the public statement, I guess, at a minimum. I'm not sure I'm gonna vote against this, Peggy, but I wanted to make the public statement at a minimum that I don't think people should be scheduling these kind of events right now. This is not the time for gatherings of people, especially when they're drinking. If there are a large number of people indoors, we've got to do something to curtail the spread of the virus right now. So I guess that would be my little speech, I guess, on why I moved it, Mayor, and just to have Peggy maybe give us a little explanation of the event there, and then we'll go ahead. I'm not going to try to make this a big drawn-out thing and put Peggy on the spot here. So, do you know anything about it, Peggy?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I have not worked with the event planner, but I'm visiting with a member of our staff who does. My understanding is that there's invitations went out to 60 people. All our events that we've had, according to the ordinance, and I'm referring to the 50% or greater, we've met that standard based on square footage, and this would fall under that as well. We certainly encourage any events we have out there, to practice all the CDC guidelines, social distancing, washing your hands. We have ample signage. We have our hand washing stations out with hand sanitizer everywhere where there's interaction with the public. So we're trying to follow the guidelines as they're laid out before us.
How many did you say, 60?
60,
Okay.
I believe it's 60 invitations. Is
And
what
that
they
would be at
sent
the
out.
Nordby Exhibit Hall, or is that?
No, that's in the women's building.
Oh, this is the women's building.
Correct.
Okay.
But you said, just to clarify, so you said that you have made an attempt, because there was some question about that last week, but you have made an attempt to follow the city ordinance of 50% or lower based on the square
Correct.
footage now.
No,
Something, especially like the Norby Exhibit Hall is quite large, so I imagine even 50% based on square footage is probably quite a few people. But
Yes.
you have been following that ordinance.
Yes, and most of our weddings, that's where they have been held. And now, I can honestly tell you, we don't go police that, we don't go in and count heads. But with most of the weddings, they do, on their own, are, trying to further tables apart, and I don't know if everybody has done, less at a table per se, but many of them are taking their own steps to try and make people feel comfortable and safe.
Well, those are good answers, I think, and I did want to use this as an opportunity like I said, though, to just voice to the public that if they can, to not schedule these right at this time. I mean, I think we're really in a tough time right now, and these are the kind of events that if you don't have to have them, perhaps you shouldn't have them at all. I mean, right now, because it would promote the spread. And, I'm sure you're doing what you can to not do that. But when you get that number of people together, even this group right here is somewhat worrisome to me right now, because we're inside, and we're going to be inside together for a considerable period of time. And these are the kind of events that we gotta think about. But I'll vote for it. I'm not gonna try to screw up whoever's getting married here. But, and I wanted to mention that other issue. I don't know if you're even aware of it yet, but we did have a work session last week. And so going forward, we need to talk about that too.
And I was made aware of it when I read the Plainsman the next day. And I respect those individuals that came before you last week. They're all friends of mine. I respect their opinion. On the other hand, I have a responsibility to try and generate as much revenue as I can.
Of course you do.
As are they. And so, I know competition, sometimes you don't like it, but sometimes it's necessary too, so.
Okay. I have nothing further, Mayor, just.
I'm going to need a motion, then we can have discussion if we need any discussion yet. So I need a motion for this procedure.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Smith, move to approve. Need a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Bragg. Now we'll have more discussion if we need it.
Well,
Jump the gun a little bit.
If I could, Mayor.
Sure.
We did have that conversation last week, and as you know from the Plainsman, we plan to look into that more. We do certainly understand at this time, and I think we want to make sure that it's clear, and I think Commissioner Clute did. We know you have not, you're following the existing law. I mean, you're doing, so even though there was a concern from those folks, you guys are doing exactly what the current city law provides for. So whether or not we need to make a change in order to balance that out, in fairness, that's on us. We know, again, you're doing what your job is to host events out there, and you're following the current existing laws. So that's where we know we need to take a look to make sure that our laws are making it fair for everybody, but we want to make it clear. We obviously know that you and the state fair have been following the current guidelines. We just, so that was not the complaint. No one was saying that you did anything that was illegal or wrong, just they were concerned about how things were going. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear from our standpoint.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes, Commissioner Borders, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Peggy, I just want to get it out in the clarification, out in the open air here. What kind of, or obviously a state fair has a liquor license.
You do not have a liquor
Okay,
license.
so how does that work? You just come here and get a special liquor
Correct.
license, and then, the second question would be, who works those weddings for you?
We have our staff, our paid staff. We have the regular folks that do it for us all the time,
So are they full-time or part-time?
part-time.
Okay.
Sometimes when our full-time staffers steps in, but usually it's part-time staff.
Okay. That may be the only questions I have for now. Thank you.
Hold your peace. A roll call vote. I'm sorry, what we're talking about, a special event on-sale liquor license, beverage license filed by State Fair for a wedding reception on November 7th, the Women's Building on Fairgrounds. Roll call vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Clute.
Aye.
Bragg.
Aye.
Robish.
Nay.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye. Thanks, Betty. Appreciate it. Ordinances and resolution. Tucker, would you discuss 7.1, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So 7.1, this is the second reading of the ordinance in regard to the rental housing provisions, and it's an amendment to update the reference to the current version of the International Property Maintenance Code that is utilized by the city of Huron pursuant to our ordinances.
Motion for that, please.
Motion to approve second reading.
Mr. Smith, motion approved, second.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Robish. Any more discussion on this? This is what we had a first reading on last week, guys, so any more discussion?
I just have a question
Sure.
if I may.
Commissioner Smith.
Here. Tucker, is the new version more restrictive, similar? Is it mainly a wording update in the ordinance?
It's, from my understanding, the new 2018 versions of the code, they're similar, but they're updated. As to the specific differences, I'd have to refer you to Chris Newman on that. But the issue that was identified here, 5.90.020, was referring people to the 2009 International Property Maintenance Code. There was a revision in 2012, 2015, 2018. Currently, we're using the 2018 versions, so this amendment just reflects that update.
Gotcha. So it just updates the reference material.
Yep, the code that you're supposed to be
Within
looking
the
at.
ordinance?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll call a vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Booth.
Aye.
Bragg.
Aye.
Robish.
Aye.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye. Departmental items, 8.1, consider police services agreement with Walmart to authorize the mayor to sign. Pauline, you have some information on this?
Yeah, our police chief is out tonight. This is an agreement to do some security at Walmart for Black Fridays. They're extending it over 3 days. So they're looking at 4.5 hours extra a day for 3 days at $60 an hour. So we recommend approval and authorize the mayor to sign.
Do we have a motion on that?
I would move approval.
Motion by Commissioner Bragg, second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Robish. Discussion. Any discussion on this item?
Is this, I assume this is something we've done before.
Correct.
It's pretty standard.
Yep.
Thank you.
Difference not being this long of a term. Correct. If I can ask, in the chief, you and I talked earlier on this topic, Paul, and the chief is good with it as far as staffing.
Staffing, yes. Yep. And he said that they'll pay $60 an hour and they were actually willing to prepay it.
Okay.
Commissioner Clue?
Yeah, I'm just curious, like, what is the event that,
Black Friday.
I see?
They're
Something I
stretching it
don't
out for
do.
3 days. Gonna be ready.
Okay.
It's not 3 consecutive days, though, based on this, it's every Friday, 7, 14, and 27.
3 Black
Yes.
Fridays.
3 Black
I
Fridays.
see.
All right.
One wasn't an
Oh, boy.
Any other discussion? We'll call a vote.
Smith.
Aye.
Close.
Aye.
Bragg.
Aye.
Robish.
Aye.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye. All right, 8.2, consider lease maintenance authorization agreement for NBA Golf LLC for golf carts and authorize the mayor to sign. Brian, Commissioner Smith, you have something on this?
I do, thank you, Mayor. In discussion with Ben Drott, our manager out at the golf course, this is a 5-year lease agreement with MB Golf Carts. MB has been our provider for golf carts for quite some time. So this isn't really anything out of the normal, it's just a renewal of that agreement. Calling for a 5-year lease objective on it. Our cost will go up about $1,000 a year. Part of that is because we're requesting 4 more carts than what we normally would have, going from 26 carts to 30 carts. And also, they will be starting the lease and providing with brand new golf carts that will stay with us throughout the lease agreement. So recommend, request approval of signing off on the lease agreement for the next 5 years with NB Golf Cart for our city golf carts.
Motion to approve.
I would make that motion if I may.
Mr. Smith makes a motion to approve. Need a second?
Second?
Second, Commissioner Rogish. Discussion?
Commissioner Smith, we had talked in the past about maybe taking a look this off-season at, there are other entities in the community that rent golf carts, and that maybe if we could get a cooperative playing together, everybody could save a little bit of money. Is that something you have looked into, or is that something we could look into before we move forward with this? Because I know we did, maybe just a lark, but we had said, there's another golf course and there are other entities that have a lease with NB golf carts, and maybe if we work together, we could save everybody a little bit of money and reduce the cost to the city. Is that something we would be able to look into before we go ahead and sign this, or have you already looked into it?
I have not, but yes, the term of this lease does not start until December 15th, so it's certainly something that we could entertain and see if there's an option there.
And then, in terms of if we're trying to negotiate with them by getting a larger number of carts to get a better rate, would signing this now hamper our ability to negotiate with them? I mean, if we make this agreement, then we don't really have the leverage potentially, or if you're saying this doesn't start, would we still have time? I'm just wondering would there be time without, I don't want to jeopardize this if this is a good deal and you guys have already done work on it, but if there would be a chance to delay this by, I don't know, even a week or something, and a couple weeks check into it to see, would that jeopardize this deal? Or would we have a chance to look into it to see if that's even a possibility?
I would probably yield that question to Ben. Have you talked to NB at any of that?
So I asked them about quantity. There is no, I guess it asked 50, like say 50 or 60. I think we had maybe talked about. But 25, 30, 40, there was no added discount per cart. So if we wanted to talk, 50, 60, that might be a different discussion. And I can sure talk to that sales manager and see if that was an option or not.
Just one of the discussions that had come up before was the per cart rate, and then also mileage is a part of that, which, there's a couple facilities in town both paying a potentially higher per cart, now maybe not, and then also both paying mileage even though the same truck is delivering all of them. So just a chance if there was some savings. If it's not enough savings, obviously it's not worth messing around with, and maybe even if there is some savings, it might be more hassle than it's worth. So I'm not saying we have to. I just wondered before we move forward and sign this agreement, if we would be able to take a little time to look into it first.
Commissioner Klug?
Well, I echo Mr. Bragg's point. We've got two golf courses next to each other, and so the possibility of synergies between those two are there. I mean, they're right next to each other. So I think it's worth a look. I think if Ben is willing to maybe talk with the country club manager and maybe together explore whether they could get a better deal, I'm all for that. There's no real hurry, I don't think, in getting this done. I mean, there's snow on the ground right now, so I think this is the time we could negotiate with them. I do kind of wonder about the 5-year term. Is that what we always have? We do a 5? That seems a little long, but.
I had that question as well. I think they've been shorter in the past, but if I'm speaking out of turn here.
I haven't seen the current one. I thought it was a 5-year with the option to get out after 4 and then re-out to new carts. but I have not seen the current one that the Jim had signed. So but I
Who
kind
knows,
of,
maybe that's a negotiating point too, the length of the contract, with both entities being involved. I think it's worth a look, and maybe we could revisit this in a week or maybe 2 weeks. We could defer it for 2 weeks, couldn't we, Brian?
If that
Give us a
if
little
that
more
would be a
time.
problem.
Yeah, it's a 10-minute phone call, so.
That's what I would go for. If you don't,
Okay.
if we could.
So we're going to defer this to 2 weeks, for 2 weeks. Do we have to have a motion on that?
So we have a motion already to approve it. You want to change your motion to defer it?
I would concur with that, defer for 2 weeks.
Change it to defer, change the motion to defer.
Correct.
And I would, you seconded it. You did, I think. But it doesn't matter, because it's a new motion.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Did you need something from me?
No, I think it's, the motions have been made and seconded, I think we could vote on that. now, to defer it.
Type this up.
Smith?
Okay.
Aye.
Booth?
Aye.
Bragg?
Aye.
Robish?
Aye.
Mayor Harrington?
Aye. Okay, thank you. Now we go to 8.3, consider leasing Broad Creek Clubhouse for the winter, and Brian will have some discussion on that. Please.
Yeah, so Ben Drott had approached me on behalf of the city. He would like to have consideration to continue to rent or make some arrangement to use the clubhouse at Broadland Creek throughout the winter. He has some desires to look at purchasing a simulator, a golf simulator, and it would be housed at the clubhouse, which is a logical place for that activity. And he would continue to try to form leagues or individual play. It wouldn't be necessarily a private thing, but he would still have obviously the authority over the clubhouse and be able to sell his concessions, along with provide entertainment for people if they desire. Ben is going to be making the investment for the simulator, which is not a cheap endeavor. And I just wanted, we're going to work out the details as far as what the rent or lease could look like, but wanted some consensus on that from the group.
We have a motion. We have a motion on this, motion to approve, then we'll have discussion.
So really, there's nothing to approve yet until you decide if you want to do this?
I think Brian's just looking for a little support for it right now.
Yeah,
Without a formal action, because there is nothing to act on. We don't have the lease.
right. It's, yeah, I mean,
So it's kind of a work session a little bit.
I suppose.
I suppose. Maybe that would have been, but that's okay, big deal.
And if we have any discussions, Ben's here, so we can do it ourselves too. If you have any questions for Ben, we're in a work session.
Well, I don't have any questions. I'd voice my support for it. I mean, that clubhouse just sits empty all winter long, and if we can get some more income out of it, and Ben can get some income to keep him coming back, and I think the public would enjoy a simulator in town during the winter months, so I think it's a great idea myself.
Ben, where would you put the simulator in the summertime?
So looking at probably one at the moment, and it would be, this one would be set up on the southwest side, and which is currently where I house my clothing and golf balls and like that. And I think for space, it could just stay up. It wouldn't be in the way. And I just move my stuff around a little bit. So, and if it goes like a couple of us think it will, we might going forward, even have two of them. And there's two flat ceilings on the north and south end, and that's where the technology for the reader has to be attached. So we could potentially have two, but then the one, if that ever happened, the one on the north wall would have to come down and just be hollow somewhere. So.
Go ahead.
In reflection to your question, Mayor, kind of what we had in mind was what the contract could look like would just be renting that facility in the off-season for a nominal fee, and then he would be responsible for the utilities through that period. Obviously, the utilities are going to probably not be real inexpensive, and I'd be proposing a nominal amount of $100 a month to utilize that, and then Ben would be responsible for utilities if that's something that, and we haven't even talked about that number.
Well, certainly, I mean, we definitely need to cover costs. We obviously don't want the city to lose money so that he can operate this, you know. I think $100, like you say, keep it, because right now we're not making anything on that, and if we don't give him a lease and don't move forward, we don't make any money. So, you know, I think it makes sense to have a rental fee, I suppose, but it doesn't, like you say, it doesn't need to be much, because right now it's replacing zero, and as long as he covers the utilities, so there's no expense. And, you know, Commissioner Smith, I know when you and I have spoken, you know, you've kind of said your goal for that golf course is to get to see more. You love to see bodies out there. You love to see people involved and engaged and enjoying the facility. And I think this sounds like, echo Commissioner Cluth's, you know, approval of this, because you get more people used to driving out there, parking in the parking lot, hanging out there, hitting golf balls. If we can get more people excited about golf, more people used to spending time at that facility, it's only going to enhance our regular golf season too. So I think it's a great thing if you're willing to make the investment in it. I definitely think it'll be a benefit for our golf course, no doubt about it.
Would there be insurance expense that we don't have during the winter that we should take into account?
His liability insurance would stay on for a year.
It's a year
And
policy.
it's a year-long policy, so we would include
Okay,
that
so
as
we
part
have
of it.
insurance and we don't need it, so now we're utilizing it? Okay, that sounds good.
Because we're responsible for the liability of the building. Like any other tenant, you'd be responsible for the liability of the individuals.
Right, but I mean, we're not gonna be incurring any additional insurance expense if we do this. This is what you said, Paul.
Right. He will cover the cost of the simulator and that, and has his own liability if there's damages in that.
Okay.
He covers it.
So with that, Mayor, if I can be so bold as to make a motion to approve entering into a rental agreement with Ben for the use of that facility throughout the off-season for 2020, 2021 at the rate of $100 a month plus utilities. And then Tucker and I can Ben work out the lease finality.
I would like to see the contract. So, and Ben's gonna be back in 2 weeks for this other topic, so if you guys can work up a contract and bring it to the commission, we will certainly, at that time, do a motion. And vote on it. Is that fair, Ben? Okay. Okay, moving on. We're gonna go to 8.4. Consider request by James White regarding sidewalks, and I think Barry's gonna have something to say, and then James will have you, probably many questions for you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, James has approached us about the sidewalk located right at the corner of Arizona Avenue and Saxton Drive. He lives at 1225 Arizona. He has asked to be granted a waiver from putting in the sidewalk that would be adjacent to Arizona Avenue, running north to south, as there is no sidewalks And you each have a picture of the area. The sidewalk line in red is the one he is asking to be exempted from installing. The sidewalk line in white running from east to west along Saxton Drive, he has no problems with putting that in. He's already basically made arrangements for next spring, given the weather. He didn't get it done in this year's construction cycle, but so he doesn't have any problem with that. But given the fact that there are no sidewalks on either side of him for roughly 500 feet on either side of him, from north or south, he is asking that he be exempted from the ordinance requirement of installing it.
Need a motion to approve, and we'll have a discussion.
Well, can we get some more information?
We'll have that in discussion. We're just making a motion now to approve. And
I'd
then we'll
move to
have-
approve the exemption.
And second?
Second.
Mr. Robish. Now we'll have discussion. Anybody want to have a discussion on this? Commissioner Coop?
Thanks, Mayor. So the red line goes to the property line, I presume?
Yes. That basically is a rough approximation of where his property lines are.
And so the property south of that red line is the nursing homes?
Right, that is correct.
And there's no sidewalk for quite...
In fact, it goes farther. There's a driveway entrance down there, and it goes beyond that even, and there's still no sidewalk. And so it goes clear down to the adjacent property owners. It's almost, I want to say it's not quite 400 feet to that next property line.
Is there a sidewalk, I've been by it many times,
Yeah.
so I should know, but I presume there is a sidewalk east of the white property on the other side of the street?
Yes, there is.
Along that whole line there?
Right.
It's, if I may, it's interesting you should ask that question, Doug, because I have an individual lives east of that, right here. And he's disabled. He can't do his sidewalks. He has to have it higher different. So when he looks across the Saxon Drive there, he goes, those people, they don't have to have somebody higher. They're not disabled. They don't have sidewalks. He calls me every winter. That's that same question.
And is this a, if I may, Mayor?
Sure, yes, yeah.
Uh,
Just a statement.
So we've had this discussion on sidewalks.
A number of occasions, yes.
And the most recent decision of this body was to require sidewalks on any new construction going forward, correct?
Correct.
And that would fit into that.
We've
category?
been working from essentially since 2018 in our office, but now I having forgot that there was a recent discussion in last June, Pauline did some digging. I think you each have a copy of that saying that anything after January 1 would be required to have sidewalks installed on a new residence.
So that's what this is, right? I just want to be clear.
Right, yes.
Because there's no house there right now, right?
Yes, there is. There is a house there, yes. The house is
Is that his house
completed.
right here?
No,
This picture is old.
Oh, it's old.
yeah, there is a house that was newly completed on that lot.
Okay, there's no house in my picture.
Yeah,
I wouldn't guess.
Okay.
yeah.
And, you know, just to follow up on that, what Commissioner Clue was saying, the conversation we had in June was that there were going to be properties that seemed odd because we were gonna be putting one patch of sidewalk in where there was none. And the decision at that time, the discussion was we had to start somewhere. And if we always said, this one doesn't have any sidewalk because the one next to it doesn't, then there would never be any sidewalk. And so it's unfortunate, I'm sympathetic to the time frame here, you know, obviously, somebody had to be in that window of when the enforcement really was put in place, and it's unfortunate for you, you happened to have fallen right into that window, but that was part of the discussion we had, is that I think you could make an argument on your property that doesn't make a lot of sense. No one's going to be walking the sidewalk because there's no sidewalk for hundreds of feet either way. But when we get to the next thing on that road, we would say the same thing. Well, we didn't make him do it, so now there's not. And at some point, we did kind of decide as a group that we had to make a call and say, even if it doesn't necessarily make sense, we got to stop letting them go. So if you have any comments you'd like to share.
When was this enforced to start putting in sidewalks? I was built in 2019.
The end of your completion, your final inspection was done January 7th.
Okay.
So of 2020, and so your certificate of occupancy would have been issued then.
Okay.
So 6 days passed. Is what you're
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
What I would like to discuss then is being built in a pre-existing neighborhood.
Jim, you want to state who you are and your
Oh, sorry.
address first?
My name is James White. I currently live at 1225 Arizona Avenue. I built a house in a pre-existing neighborhood, as Cranston said. 600 feet to the north of me, there's no sidewalk. 500 feet to the south of me, there's not a sidewalk. In fact, there's actually a tree in the way. I am happy to build a sidewalk on the north side of my property to complete Saxton, fill in that occupancy. At this time, I would ask for a temporary deferral to build on the front of my property until the surrounding areas around me also put one in. If new properties are required to put a sidewalk in, when will the surrounding properties around them also be able to? That said, being a pre-existing neighborhood, not a new neighborhood, so this was not to be added on per se. I'm more than happy to add the sidewalk if the surrounding neighbors around me also do, but until that point, I'm just asking for a temporary deferral until surrounding neighbors do as well.
Any questions for Mr. White?
I have a question, if I may.
Mr. Smith?
James, I drove by the property, I've been by it like everybody else, but, so with your driveway in place, how many feet is that from your driveway to that north to the corner, do you know?
I'd say about 40 feet from the driveway, I guess.
Okay. So, it isn't the full length, obviously, that,
No, I mean, there would be a small section of sidewalk that if he were to have to put in that whole run of sidewalk, there would be, it's a double stall garage, so you're probably 24 to 26 feet wide on the driveway. So it'd be probably another 10 feet to the south.
Yeah.
And I'd guess maybe 40 feet to the north roughly.
so about 50 feet of sidewalk is what you're looking at.
Roughly, yes.
The one thing I will say about it, with having that in front of your house, and I totally get your point, with unstructured borders, not having sidewalks. But one benefit that I would see is it would be a continuation from Saxton, tying that all together to your property line. And rather than having just a stake, kind of a blunt end there on the corner. In the event, because it is a corner lot, I totally understand your challenge, because you're covering two sides of your house with sidewalk. Cost factor obviously goes into that. But down the road, don't know That could be a bus stop somewhere along the line, a drop point. So that's probably one of my concerns with it, James, would be just the continuity of tying in with Saxton around and going south.
I totally agree with finishing Saxton, going to the corner, but at the point, it's just my driveway, there's a tree, my driveway, and then it would be over there. I'm just asking, if I'm asked to be doing this, I would just like a continuation of sidewalks throughout the street. So I'm not the only one in that 1,000 feet radius that does have one. If I have to be the start, fine, but I would like to be some follow-up in the surrounding area.
Yes. So with that point, and I think it's a valid point, that if we require you to have it, I'd like to see it go on, you know, that I don't, these sidewalks to nowhere kind of look stupid. Don't really serve much of a purpose, but it would be nice to have the sidewalk all the way down there. So the question becomes, how do we get the nursing home to do it? I mean, is that
I've not.
horse out of the barn, or was it the cow out of the barn? I
The
can't
horse.
remember which
The
one.
horse.
But,
It's been our experience with the administration over there that they're pretty easy to work with. We've not had this discussion with them, so we'd have to test that water. But I know we have worked with them here just this summer for sidewalks on the west side of their building along Minnesota there to allow for pedestrian traffic, so it's not on the road there. There is some wheelchair traffic in there as well on that along Minnesota. So we have worked with them. I know the engineering office has worked with them to install a sidewalk on the west side of their property. So we just haven't really had the occasion to have the conversation with them about the east side of here along Arizona.
so would you be in favor of a deferral to allow us to have some discussion with the nursing home?
I wouldn't oppose that at all. I think it's a reasonable, it's a reasonable discussion, certainly. You know, the intention has always been to, maintain those sidewalks. But that said, the problem we have is that we have other other areas of the community that are gonna be sidewalks to nowhere. We've got a brand-new development in Southtown that's gonna have sidewalks to nowhere in it. We've got contractors building on 26th Street and homeowners building on 26th Street that have corner lots that had to put sidewalks into nowhere. And so it becomes a little bit of a precedent issue and that I'd be concerned about going forward.
If I can, Mayor?
Yes.
I'll take my turn on this one. Okay, well, James, it's unfortunate that you're in the position that you're in, okay? But I'm gonna go back a long ways here. Before I was on the city commission, then Mayor McGurr appointed me to the sidewalk commission. It was the first thing I ever did for the city. And we talked about it that long ago, and I would have to, I'm not very good on notes, so I store more up here, but what we came up with is any new construction had to have a sidewalk, and we've discussed this since then too, but any new construction had to have a sidewalk, and then any construction, any property adjacent to that with a sidewalk had X amount of time to put in a sidewalk also. So let's say you put in a sidewalk going north, going south. I don't know who owns the property south of you, or what, if that's the nursing home right next door, okay. They would be, I don't wanna say with a lack of a better term, forced to put in the sidewalk, okay? And then going north, there's nothing adjacent to your sidewalk going north, okay? We also did talk about, okay, the street is a barrier, but at the same time, it's a connection. That was part of our discussion way back when, that we brought to the commission. And we talked about it. So in theory, everyone should have to put a sidewalk in. And guess what? Not very many do. And so until it gets enforced, it's not gonna happen. So unfortunately, I understand your situation, I understand your explanation. I guess I would have to say, we need a sidewalk going south. If it's a sidewalk to nowhere, I guess, I don't know. It's a sidewalk to nowhere. But then the nursing home should have to be forced to put in a sidewalk, because it's adjacent to that property that put in a sidewalk. That was the deal. I don't know who has notes on that, from 2007 or 8, I'm sure. But because it was after that we've talked about it probably every year so far. And we actually said we were going to put more teeth into it. So if we say that, I think we need to do that. I'm sorry, but I think we need to do that. There you go.
James, when you took out the building permit to put the house on the property, were you notified of that restriction, or were you given instruction on that with the building permit that, hey, we're gonna expect you to have sidewalks all the way around?
I was unaware of it at the time. I didn't think it was needed. I also didn't think it was being enforced. Later on, when I found out about it, my building permit was already full to the max. I couldn't put it on if even if I wanted to. It was just something that just wasn't planned very well, and I believe it was just, might have just missed either my eye or my contractor's eye, but I was unaware I needed it at the time. And then by the time I realized I did need it, it would have been too late.
Too late from a financial standpoint.
To put it on a loan, yes, but I didn't learn about this until many months after my loan was already completed.
Okay.
It is supposed to be in the building permit. We have another veteran here that worked on that for a few years, and I'm pretty sure it's in the building permit.
Used
Now,
to be.
whether that's your opportunity, that's your responsibility to know that, or your builder, or whatever, I don't know where that comes, but I'm pretty sure it's in the building permit.
May I ask how long it's been on the building permit? Because I have residents 5 years old and 8 years old surrounding my house.
Yep.
So if it was on a building permit for them,
I can't answer that. I should be able to, but I can't, sorry.
that's all. I'm just asking for fairness.
Yep, I understand that.
Yeah, and I think, going back to June, I think even our building inspector did say something along the lines of, it is definitely on the back of the building permit, it is there, and everybody knows it's there and signs it, but he did make the statement up there at that lectern that it had not been enforced, and then that's where we had to make it, was not something we voted on, but again, that's where what we changed is said, we're not passing a new ordinance, we're just choosing to enforce what's there, and we picked a date. So, I mean, he does, from that stand, have a point that there were other folks that constructed in the time frame that he was in that we didn't enforce it, at least according to what our building inspector said.
He has neighbors.
I'm not sure why we asked that question at the time, why, if it was a requirement, we hadn't been enforcing it, and we didn't really get a good answer for that, but what we did say as of that meeting was we were going to start enforcing it. I do think, he started his process before that, and we picked what may be considered an arbitrary date, saying January 1st, which just so happens to be 6 days off, so I would certainly agree with Barry that there's a precedent issue if we start saying, I wouldn't make my decision on this one based on the fact that there's not sidewalks on either side. Because we have said, as Barry said, there will be sidewalks to nowhere for a while. We would like to go back, and I'm the sidewalk commissioner, I was handed a folder by Commissioner Clute, used to be in, there's stuff from the 90s, and stuff from the 80s, and stuff from 2000, and we've never been able to get a comprehensive, make everybody in the city put a sidewalk deal in, just because it's not been something we've been able to come to a consensus that would work for the whole community. So the only compromise, looking at multiple different groups, was at some point we just need to start saying, hey, from here on out, at least for new construction, we're gonna stick to it. And then eventually we'd love to come up with a way to enforce it. So for me, my decision voting for you here would not be about that. The one thing I would consider is, our building inspector sat up there and said, people were signing that knowing that it was on there, but we were not enforcing it. And we picked a date and said, we're gonna start enforcing it as of now, and this poor gentleman happens to be 6 days off of that. I wonder if, saying he doesn't have to put it in, for me, would not be saying, I will never vote for any sidewalks to nowhere. I would be willing to say, because of the confusion of whether or not we were enforcing it, he may have been caught in a position where he was unawares, moved forward with his loan, thinking the practice had been not to enforce it. Because certainly I think we could definitely find that, and I think if we had Chris to come up here, he would say, there were many folks that started construction around when he did that had not had to do it, but because we picked that January 1st date, he happens to be just 6 days on the other side of it. That would, for me, that would be, again, I would not want to deal with the precedent of saying we're not going to do sidewalks to nowhere, because I think we're going to have to do that. I would just wonder if he does have a point here on the way the dates fell, where maybe we could make an exception.
Construction did begin before September of 19.
Well, I think Mr. White has proposed the solution to the dilemma, and that's just to defer requiring him to put it in until the nursing home does also, and pursue that very strongly. I think just because of the timing, I think there is a matter of fairness to him to do that before he has to put in an investment like that. I think the nursing home should too. And that's a big corporation. We should be able to get that done. They should have one.
It would be used. It would
They're a
definitely be
business, they
used.
should have one. And maybe the building permit going forward should be revised to more clearly state this requirement, so that we don't have people come up and go, well, I didn't really see it. We gotta make this very clear that going forward, new construction's gonna require sidewalks. And you're not off the hook, Mr. White, in my opinion. I still want a sidewalk there. But I just think, I think it's only fair to get the nursing home involved. If that delays it 6 months, so be it. But, I know we're getting close to being not being able to put in a sidewalk, so it might have to wait till next spring or early summer. But let's get that sidewalk going all the way over there. That's what I'd like to see.
I think, this is just you haven't put the sidewalk in going east and west yet, because you're going to do that.
I've contacted my contractor and I had to sign up for the spring.
I guess that's what I was gonna say. He's already got that contracted for the spring.
So maybe we can get it done by then, huh?
I guess I would like to put it this way, not maybe. I'm sorry, but not maybe. Let's get it done this spring. That's what I'm gonna say. I guess that's the way that's why I'd have to vote, because for all these years, I didn't do anything about it, James. I'm sorry. That doesn't mean anything to you. But I'm going to start now, I guess, on this, because we have to. We have to start someplace. We have to start someplace. We already said that 10 years. For 10 years, we've said we have to start someplace. And we put a date on it, so we have to start someplace. So if he's willing to get this done by spring, we give the nursing home, we say, you know what, come spring, we're gonna see dirt move, because James is moving dirt, and you're gonna move dirt, and maybe you can get the same people to do it at the same time. There you go. I guess I could live with spring because of the timing, no problem with that. But I do have to go with that myself.
Notwithstanding what I offered previously about the individual lives right across the street, this disabled and has to pay for his own snow removal while people across the street does. Other concern I have about this, it's on a sidewalk to the school. If we can't protect our students walking to school, so they don't have to cross the street, they can walk on the same side of the street they live on, we're missing something here, folks. Everywhere you go in the United States, they have schools. They have sidewalks leading to them. There's federal program that pays for that. And this one here is just, if you drive down that, look, see the amount of open land, And we got kids that have to walk in the road or go across the street just to get on the sidewalk to go to school. That's not right. We shouldn't have it that way. Anything else in this one? I've said enough.
I just have one further comment, if I may. The requirement of having the nursing home put in a sidewalk for their frontage, while I think it's a good idea, I would struggle to see them doing that for as much property as they have to deal with. But if you look further north of where Mr. White's property is, there's a considerable number of houses that have been put in there, as he stated, within the past 5 to 10 years. Not one of them has a sidewalk. So if you're going to try to create continuity for that span, if you don't have the senior or the nursing home buy-in for that and requiring that, I don't even know how we do that, number one, because it's been so far back. But then you also have the ones to the north that you better be thinking about.
That's why we set a date of January 1st, 2020, because we could not go back. We could not go to Riverside or River Drive and make them put sidewalks in. That's why we have it. So it's from that date on, it's what we're gonna build and enforce. We can go talk to the nursing home, doesn't mean they're gonna do it. But anybody that built after January 1st, they're gonna do it. So I think we're beating a dead horse talking about things that happened 5, 10 years ago, because we can't enforce it. We don't have anything in our rules and regulations and laws to enforce it. If we want to put some in, good luck. I don't know how you're gonna do it. But we set that date, January 1st, 2020, because we're gonna stand on it. And what happens when we don't stand on it, then the people who we hire to enforce the ordinances in our laws say, if they're not gonna stand on it, why do I have to go out and enforce it? And that's exactly what happened one time, and our building inspector said, what am I doing here for? You guys are just gonna change it, just what do we wanna do? So we gotta stand on it, but I agree, I think it's your proposition to Mr. White's a good deal. I think it's something we should go with. And I'd entertain a motion to.
So we have a motion to
Okay.
approve his request of building on the Saxton, I'm looking at you because building on Saxton and deferring on Arizona to the north.
Yeah, that's what that, is that what
So
you
on
had?
that side, we already have a motion to, and a second to approve that.
Okay, what Doug presented. Okay, so there's no more discussion on that. Let's have a vote. Roll call, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Coe.
Aye.
Bragg.
Aye.
Robish.
Aye.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye. Thanks, James.
Thank you.
Okay. 8.5 is consider purchase of COVID funds. Pauline, this is something you can explain to us, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously I sent an email out last week. I've been working on the salaries and those things requested and those. So some of this is I've talked to the state of your NECA, so I'm gonna just go through my list. So we were looking at some iPads for commissioners, 5 new ones. We've taken the old ones back and distributed them to other departments. Laptops for department heads that don't have laptops or computers with cameras. There's 11 of those. Remote access service for our IT, and so employees can work from home if needed. We are starting to see some of our employees be sent home. We'd like to look at, we're asking for approval from the state on these things currently. Update the online payment system. On our website, it's very old, very antiquated. When they call in, we gotta run to the machine, run it. So we'd like to be able to update it so the staff can run a credit card from the machine if they have to, and make it easier online for the people. Restocking the fire department trailer that's being used at the sampling site. radios for the police department that meet state requirements. Now, they are denying that one at this point, but they're keeping that request out there because more and more cities are starting to ask.
Well, then, if I may interrupt you, is that all down on something that we're
You
provided?
should have a
Maybe I'm
list
just
on
missing
your
it.
desk.
Okay, I'm sorry, continue.
Here's another one, you need it?
No, I'm sorry, it was buried here. My apologies.
One of the other things we're looking at is the upgrades to the conference room and the video conferencing. They were questioning that one, but we put that on and asked for approval. It's more updating the table where we can have the electric and everything in the middle, so we can hook everything up and have it on the TV and do some video conferencing. And then automatic toilet flushers, touchless faucets, soap dispensers, and paper towels in our city buildings. Chris is doing a rundown of all the buildings and possibly toilets and sinks. At this point, that's all I've asked for. That's what's come up. Otherwise, we put in for salaries, which we knew were already going to be covered. We put in for the car agreement for the first 2 quarters, as well as the reader boards that we purchased for the sampling room. Little update too, I've updated this as of today, the spreadsheet. Again, we're allotted $3,024,000. We've requested $1,147,000, and we've been authorized so far $938,000. So slowly but surely, we're getting those funds. No checks have come yet, but we have been authorized.
Any discussion for Pauline on this?
I guess I got some questions, and this is all good and fine and great and whatever, but why are they doing all this? Why are they paying all these things? I mean, our police department or fire department, or why are they paying the salaries? I mean, that's a good deal for us, but man, we just had 10 people, and well, they weren't in here last week, but they were talking for 10 or more people, how they were losing money. And here we are. We have this stuff all budgeted already, and they're paying for it.
Federally required. That was first, came right out of the chute. First that money came out, that's the things that came after dispatch, fire, police, you know. Why? Contact your congressman out in Washington DC to answer that
Well, he
question.
just left.
No, he didn't have nothing to do with this.
I understand that, I understand that, but I'm just,
It's just,
Don't look a gift horse in the mouth.
well, I don't want to, but I
That's the name
listen
of a
to all
song.
I listen to the business owners, and we got one sitting right here. Hey, what the world?
I understand what you're saying there, Mark.
It just
Not gonna
doesn't,
change
it's not
it.
right. There's no.
I have a question though.
Yeah.
Do you have any projection on how much more that $2,086,000 would probably be approved in these categories, or is this?
So initially, I did a quick rundown of salaries and the things I knew would be, and we were about at 2.8 million total, right away. That's with
okay.
salaries, the car contract, you know, the reader board, easy things I know. When I talked to him, you know, I have masks on there. Masks automatically we gotta pay for, iPads, the computers. Most of the technology things, they're gonna cover. It's the other things I'm really asking for approval from the state.
So in other words, we're not in too much danger of turning back unused money.
Correct, and that's what we're trying to
Yeah,
come
I
up
mean,
with.
that's just what we have to do. Come on.
Yeah, and you had asked for updates, so I figured every week I'll update your spreadsheet so you can see that. And then as other things come up, there is some things that we've asked for that we talked about during budget process, like for the library, some other things that they will not cover, not at this time.
I'm going to use my discretion here a little bit. I'm going to call on the former mayor. He raised his hand in the back, and I'm not a school teacher, but I know what that means.
We had discussed several months ago that the time that Greater Huron had spent doing the communications and so forth may have been eligible at some task force meetings, but we've never actually submitted anything because we didn't know if that was the final decision. We would like to get the utilities and so forth for the spec building because they were only running about $30 a month until you occupied it. And now they're, hundreds of dollars a month. So you know, if you had money left over, we could certainly lease you that building too. Because our income has been impacted by members who can't afford to pay their membership dues. But anyhow, I just would like some clarification on what we should and shouldn't apply for. And it doesn't have to be right now, but just.
Well, if that's something we want to include on our list, I would ask for something from you officially, then I could send it to the state.
I would think we should. If we can put all this other stuff in there, holy cow, they can pay for that. I just-
Yeah, that's COVID related, so come on.
There's no such thing as free money. This just bothers me. It just bothers me.
It's not free, I can tell you.
Well, exactly my point. It's not free.
Your great grandkids will be paying for
Yeah, there you go.
With those things added from David, that's what I'm asking for approval, contingent upon state approval.
Sometimes we have to play with the rules that we're given, folks. That's the way it is, that's the way it is. Anything else for, yes?
Okay, just one, so Paul, you said, you mentioned there were some that they had not yet approved, but they were holding versus some of the library stuff that you said no, so.
No one
is there-
gets time, so what I had, so every Thursday the state meets with Northeast Council of all the local government groups in the state. And so I brought it up again, you know, the library kiosk was a thing. I brought it up again, and I said, don't ask yet. So I keep bringing it up, keeping it on my list. But there's just certain things right now, they're saying libraries aren't essential during the pandemic. The radios for the police department initially, no. Now they're saying, last week it was maybe, so it's on my list to ask for again.
So you're not, there's nothing we're redlining and taking off the list,
Nothing
it's
yet
just
has
no
been
at this time.
redlined, no. I just didn't put it on this list yet because at this point it's no.
Thank you.
It's on my list still.
Any other discussion on this? Did we take a vote on this, Bob?
No, we need a motion.
Need a motion? Have a motion to approve?
What are we approving exactly?
Her update, the COVID
To
update.
accept the list contingent upon state approval.
I would move to accept the list contingent on state approval.
Second that.
Second that, okay. Any more discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Clute.
Aye.
Bragg.
Aye.
Robish.
Aye.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye. 9.1, work session, update from Huron Housing on Rehab Specialist Program. We see two great